Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Baest, Colossal, out August 15th on Century Media Records. The album has 9 tracks, 42 minutes in length, and this is the band's 4th full-length studio record. They are a Danish death metal band. Now, when it comes to the design of this record, I feel like the album is both balanced and dynamic. Now, I know that these two are not necessarily polar opposites of one another, but very frequently, if you have a very well-balanced record, you end up with a very linear album as well, where the experience doesn't really change that much from beginning all the way to the end. This album is too dynamic to have that approach. I think the balance side of the record, and specifically of the design, is not necessarily the sense of equality across each and every single song, but rather where the songs are taking you. They all have a very similar idea behind them, sound-wise, and they all have a very similar outcome. So that is where the balance throughout the record exists. Now, where you go with the idea and the path that you take, it's very unique on a song-by-song basis, and that's where the dynamic side of the record design shines. And when you put these two elements together, you create a very good sound experience, you create a very good overall record experience for the listener, because you never feel like the album is cumbersome, and you never feel like the album is running out of ideas. This adds to the playability within the record and of the overall record. You get to the end, you're ready to go back again to the beginning and listen to the album all over. That's the style of record that they created, and I really feel like the design of this album not only enhances what the individual songs have to offer, but really creates a very good overall experience. Now, as far as the sound goes, this is a very unique sounding album for this band. Perhaps their most unique, not perhaps, it is their most unique sounding album to date. And it might be a little bit polarizing, because I feel like if you've haven't been paying attention to the singles, this album may catch you by surprise. It's not the band's most brutal record to date by far. In my opinion, it's their best sounding record to date. And the reason why it's their best sounding record is because what they perhaps decreased in brutality in the sound, they added in quality. This is definitely an easier to listen to record. It's a richer sounding album. It's a more textured sounding album. It's an album that has a lot more volume to it. And with that volume, you don't always get thickness, and the songs are not dense. The songs have a lot more room to breathe within them. All of this is mainly because the guitar sound on this album is excellent. It's a more rock, heavy metal, riff-centric driven album. It has a lot more of those natural sounding riffs, not necessarily a more prototypical death metal style approach sound from the guitars, song in and song out. There are still some prototypical death metal tracks on this album, and this is still a very heavy album, but perhaps not as heavy as some of the other albums that the band has released. But it comes down to that more rock and roll centric guitar sound. Where the brutality on this record comes in is definitely from the consistency of the vocals and also the drum sound. There are certain portions of this record, songs, periods within songs, where the drums really infuse a lot of heaviness, a lot of strength, a lot of power. I would go as far as to say a lot of intensity to the way the sound comes across. And that is important because it allows for the experience to be dynamic. It allows for the experience not to become static, and it allows the record to still have that death metal aroma to it without necessarily compromising it for that more traditional, more texture, more rich guitar, clear, clean sound that definitely breathes differently within these songs. So they were able to create a very interesting hybrid, or a very interesting, at the very least, idea of what death metal could sound like if the guitars take a different approach, if the guitars have a different starting point, if they have a different influence. And I think that's where the sound on this album not only becomes more textured and richer, but easier to listen to and easier to digest, because it's not a cumbersome guitar sound. It's not a dense guitar sound. It's a very crisp, very clean, very to the point, but with great melodies, great grooves, super catchy, super hooky. Very difficult to find a death metal album that is this catchy and this hooky guitar-wise across 9 songs, regardless of the levels of heaviness that these tracks will offer you. So it's a very unique, very interesting approach on death metal, I really like this style because it brings a little bit more rock into the picture. And I think that adds quality to the way these songs are presented. And it also increases tremendously the palette in which they can pick up ideas, pick up colors from in order to create their songs. Instead of boxing themselves in within the genre of death metal and always having to create brutal song after brutal song, by opening up the box and allowing that more clear cut, that more old school style riffing with rock and classic heavy metal influences coming into the table, suddenly they can do a lot more. And that allows them to be as creative as they want to be and not necessarily pigeonhole themselves to just one style, to just one approach. So the album is very rich from that standpoint, and it has great sound quality throughout. Now, the vocals I mentioned already is definitely one of the catalysts of the overall heaviness of this album, and they're very consistent. And I like that because sound-wise, if you're going to play with sounds, if you're going to bring in more of a guitar-centric idea to what each and every single song has to deliver, if you're going to create a more palpable, an easier-to-listen-to guitar-style approach for a record like this, you want to obviously create also something that stays consistent, that stays balanced, and well connected with what the previous records had to offer. For me, without a shadow of a doubt, is definitely the vocal performance, because this album vocally is as strong as any of the other records when it comes to the heaviness, when it comes to the brutality, when it comes to the delivery. Obviously, with a different backdrop sound-wise, the vocals on this record, sometimes even those sound a little bit easier to digest. But it's not necessarily the vocal performance itself that has changed. It's just the background that showcases them under a different light. When you put it all together, this is by far my favorite record from the band. I like this sound a lot better. It's more unique. It has its own character. It has its own DNA. It feels more organic, and it's not a record that you can say you've heard before a million times. A lot of, very often within the genre of death metal, you pick up an album and it sounds great. At the end of the record, you cannot remember a specific song. You cannot tell the forest from the trees. This record definitely defines what each song is all about, and having that easier to approach sound or easier to digest overall soundscape definitely helps with you identifying the tracks, identifying the experience, and connecting with them on a much deeper level. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I had to pick Stormbringer for two reasons. One is the opening track, and I think it's a great opening track because it showcases that more rock and roll side of this album, that more guitar-centric experience, that classic rock sound, as far as guitars are concerned, is all over this track. And what a better way to start a very different sounding album than with a song that really emphasizes all of those differences. And that's exactly what this song brings to the table. You're also going to hear those more thunderous, those more heavy sounding drums that at times really help lift up the heaviness of the sound on this album. They're present on this song, not having any impact whatsoever on how dynamic and how cool sounding the guitars are throughout. Super catchy choruses, which is another thing that I can say about the entire album. This record is filled with great catchy choruses, both from a musical standpoint and from a vocal standpoint. So this song brings all of these ideas that you're going to find throughout the entire record and just puts them all in the first track, the first song of the album, telling you exactly this is what you're going to get, more or less. If you like Stormbringer as an opening song with all of the great qualities that it has, great main riff, great guitar sound, great vocals, heavy drums, hooky chorus, amazing solo. If you like this kind of picture of what death metal for this band currently is, the rest of the album, you're just gonna love it. So I really like Stormbringer because it sets the mood, it sets the table. Then you have In Loathe and Love. Now, this is overall a heavier song than Stormbringer. It's still very robust as far as the guitar sound and the guitar dependency is concerned. The volume is there, but it also has a little bit more thickness within that volume. So it's not just a big sounding song, it's a big sounding song that has a lot of substance in it. A little perhaps more of a traditional death metal sound, death metal track, but you have also this vocal performance that really matches the different ideas and the different momentums within the song perfectly. Last but not least, Imp of the Perverse. This is a groovier track, specifically in the verses, and I think this song has two different moods, two different ideas, two different executions. If you look at the verses of this track, it really feels more like a groove death metal song, because it has the heaviness of a death metal track, but it has a lot of groovier elements as far as the overall guitar sound is concerned, and the vocal performance really matches that experience as well. Then once you get to the chorus is almost more dark, more melancholic. It has a different melody to it. It just completely changes the mood, and it really halts the song. It really stops the song. So it's a track that has these two different ideas, these two different executions, but they work so well with one another that it creates this incredible peak and valley constantly throughout the entire track, really allowing you to see a different side of the band in the same song, with two different feelings, with two different vibes, with two different atmospheres, but overall an excellent vocal performance that gets the most out of the mood of the two different timings that the song has, as far as the heavier sound, the groovier sound, and then that more melancholic experience that the chorus offers. This is it. Baest with Colossal, once again out August 15th on Century Media Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band. Hit me up in the comment section, and I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.